Welcome everybody, my name is Gracian and welcome to a new type of little series that I'm going to be doing on my channel periodically. I'm thinking about calling these series NGGs, standing for New Game Glance, and essentially what I'll be doing here is taking a look at games that are in beta or early access or have recently released and I don't know that a lot of people may know about the game. So this will be an opportunity for me to look at games that aren't going to have as many episodes as some of my other ones. I tend to do more of the sort of long form series where I'll have 10 to 30 episodes of, say, a game of Planetfall or something like that. But this will give me an opportunity to take a look at smaller games. Maybe they're shorter or I don't want to play a full run. I just want to show it off. Essentially, it'll be a way for me to have quicker, shorter series about things in between some of my other things. And if you haven't been to my channel before, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Play lots of strategy games on the channel. I do Planetfall, comes out every other day, and I'll have 2 other concurrent series that come out every 4th day. And those will usually be strategy games. I play a lot of strategy games, tactics games, and roguelites and roguelikes. So if you want to see that kind of thing, check out my channel. I also do it periodically. I'll do a puzzle game or a creepy game or an RPG or something like that as well. So check out the playlists I have, and hopefully there's something there that interests you. So what we're going to be looking at today is a game called Mech Armada. Now, Mech Armada is in early access, and I found it through Steam because they were having sort of a little festival of small development studios that have just a small number of people in them. And Mech Armada has only it's like maybe a couple of people or something like that. So I was really interested in the game, and it wasn't very much, so I went ahead and grabbed it, gave it a try, and I thought it'd be perfect for a very quick little series on YouTube where I just showed it off. So Mech Armada is a game about saving the human race from alien invaders, and you're using basically unpiloted mechs. It's a sci-fi turn-based tactics game that is currently in early access, and you will build a squad of mechs out of these modular pieces. The game is roguelite. You will research different mech parts on each run, so they'll be a little bit different. You'll unlock more parts while playing that you can then see in future runs. You can upgrade all sorts of parameters in between runs so you can progress further the next time, because essentially you'll play until you die or you get to the final boss. But it's very difficult at first. You have to unlock some stuff, get better, and get better upgrades before you're going to make it very far. The story is that there are alien invaders called the Swarm that invaded Earth and killed off most of humanity. The survivors sort of fled underground to hide from the aliens, and years later there has been a breakthrough in technology in replication that was discovered, allowing for unmanned mechs to be created almost instantly, and they can make them remotely as well, which is really helpful. And this game is developed and published by Lion Code Games, and as far as I can tell, this is their first game, so congratulations, developers. So when you load up the game, there is a tutorial, so definitely go ahead and do that. It's pretty helpful, but I think I'll go through this anyway just because there's a few things you kind of have to figure out on your own, and so if you're interested in playing, by all means go ahead and do that. But if you want to watch my tutorial, that's what the rest of this video is going to be about, and then we'll get to some gameplay. So this is the Mech Armada Control Center, or the MAC. So you can see it's got this cool brain here, and if you hover over things, it kind of highlights a little section of it, which is pretty cool. So this is maybe some sort of AI that controls the generation of these mechs and the storage of the data and the swarm and stuff. So let's start with the meat of it, which is the starting mechs, right? The most exciting part about this game is actually the mechs themselves. So if we click here on the starting mechs, we can see that we have these 2 mechs here, and I'll go into what this means here, but essentially this is their cost to deploy, and I'll explain why this is red. So you can click on these from here, but it's better to go into Edit Mechs, and you can kind of get a 360 look at them here, and you can get their stats over on the right. So if you click on one, you can kind of pan it around and get a little bit of a view of it. Pretty neat. You can see there's these code towers in the background, very gear, circuitry and electronics kind of feeling to it. It's very, very cool since these mechs are sort of made by a nano replication. So this is all sort of basically abstract code. So in here is where we can see our individual mechs and make edits. And so there are 2 ways to see what parts are on a mech. You can get a visual glimpse, but that doesn't do much. So the 2 main ways you do it are you can actually go over here and see parts in use. And so I can see, if I hover it here, it'll actually show up on the mech. And mechs have 3 parts. There are transports, bodies, and weapons. So transports determine the type of movement that a mech is going to have, the speed it has, and its HP. So you can see here for this mech, Mini Tracks gives it 3 health, no armor, which is essentially a flat block of damage, and it has 2 points of movement. And it has a special ability which it moves further on roads, but it can't use rough tiles. So essentially, because it's on this like track type of wheel, it can't go over rough ground, so it's stuck on nice smooth surfaces, but it can move quickly on roads, which is nice. It also has 2 movement points. Next up is the body, and here we have a basic body. This has a health of 3, no armor, and it has 1 weapon slot. Now that's very, very important. Body determines the HP, the mount slots for weapons, and equipment. So that's extremely important to know how many slots it has. I forgot to mention, down here at the bottom, it'll say spawn. If you see right here, it shows spawn is 1 energy, this shows spawn is 1 energy, and this shows spawn is 0 energy. That essentially means that to make this mech, if we go out into the field and we want to spawn one of these in, you can see the spawn cost is 2 energy. And that's important, and we'll go into why that is later on. Obviously, that's a resource you need to accumulate, but there's some couple little caveats about that you have to know. So back into the parts, we also have the weapons. Weapons are usable items, but they are not limited to dealing damage. Most of them are machine guns and missiles, but I have found a few really cool things like healing beams, a shield, a drone spawner, a damage booster, and so I'm excited to see what kind of other stuff there might be in the game. Here, for instance, we have this machine gun. It does 4 damage, just a flat 4 damage at range 1, so you have to get right up next to something. It's essentially a melee machine gun. And in order to spawn this in, it costs 0 energy. That's because this is an extremely basic machine gun that's not very good, so it doesn't cost you much. The other way you can see what parts are in use is if you go over here. You can see all the stats combined together. So here you can see the individual ones, right? 3 health, etc. Here you can see the totals. You have 6 health, no armor, and 2 moves from the different parts on this. It's got all of its weapons and equipment here. It's got its spawn cost here. And it has its items here, which you can also hover, and it'll kind of highlight them on the mech itself so you can figure out what you're looking at. All the items do have unique visuals, which is really, really cool. The only thing in the game I found that looks the same is you will start with 2 of these basic ones. There aren't any shared models as far as I can tell. Another really cool thing you can do is you can actually change the color of the mech. So we can go in here and say, you know what, I'd really like this to be like an orange color or like a green or something like that. And you can change the light color as well, which is pretty cool. And one of the nice things about doing this is then it actually changes it over here. So you can see now when you're looking for what parts these are in use by, it's color-coded to the color of the mech. And so that's a really helpful thing you can do, is I tend to make my frontline tankier minions like a red color, and then I'll make like my supporting units red, yellow, or blue, and then I'll make like my my long-range guys a certain color or something like that. I'll go ahead and change this back to blue just because it's more visually distinct for me. And you can also rename your mech. So here, you know, I could call this whatever I wanted to. So I'll just call this one the Cheapo. Now, why does it show that these parts are in use on this mech? That is because, like I mentioned, these are actually individually unique parts. So if I have this machine gun on this mech, I cannot design a different mech that uses this machine gun. I only have one version of this for designs. Now, once there are mechs deployed, I can go back and design new mechs with this one, but I can only ever have one design at a time using each of the parts in the game because they are unique. So as long as I have these 3 parts on this mech, no other mech can have those in the design. So if we go in and look at this mech, it actually has a little bit less health. This track here on the blue one gives 3. This one gives 2. This one can let you move after your action, though. So if you were close enough to shoot an enemy, then you could move away afterwards. Normally using an action like an equipment piece or a weapon ends your turn. It has the same basic body here. And then for weapon, it has the double-double, which does 2 times 2 to 5 damage. So it might do 2 damage and 2 damage. It might do 3 damage and 5 damage. So you've got a range. But the minimum it can do is the same as this machine gun, 4, but its range is 2. So this is a straight-up better weapon except for the fact that this costs energy. Now you may be wondering, why does it say that it costs 4 energy to spawn in this mech over here, but when you hover the part it says spawn 2 energy times 2 equals 4, and here it says 1, and here it says 1 times 2 equals 2. That's because there is a geometrically increasing cost to spawn in mechs using the exact same part. So the reason that is, and it doesn't tell you this, but we're basically going to start with one of these mechs. So that's why its cost has increased. If we go back in here, this doesn't have it. We're not going to start with one of these. So this costs the basic 2. But this one here shows times 2 because if you spawn one of these in, it's going to cost extra. And that's where we're going to get that 7. So as you progress and you unlock additional parts in a run, you can go in here to design new mechs. You can name them, color them however you like, and you can click on, say, let me start with a transport, then let me add a body, then let me see what weapon choices I have. The pieces are, of course, all in use right now, so anything we design would destroy our other designs, so we're not going to worry about that right now. So that's the starting mechs. Next up, we have the parts list. This is a list of all of the parts that I have found in the game through playing. So I have transports. You can see all these different kind of transports, all the way from these mega tanks, these mega walkers, these little spider guys here, all sorts of cool stuff. I even had a little jet that I was using in one game recently. That was really cool. It could fly over the train and kind of approach from the flanks of things. Here's all the bodies we've found. Now these determine your amount of weapon slots you can have, as well as some other features. So here's the basic that has 1 weapon slot, all the way up to this chunky heavy boy up here with 12 health, 2 weapon slots, and resist debuff. Very cool, but it costs 5 energy base. Imagine how high that's going to be if you have more than one of these out on the field at once. It's going to be almost impossible, if not impossible, to actually afford to put one of these out. And then we have weapons here. So there's all sorts of cool stuff in this game. I was rocking this shield, which is really cool power. You use that armor. Every turn you can just put up the shield and block 7 damage. It's very, very useful. And here's my healing beam I had. So I basically had a healer following around a big mega heavy guy with a shield. And we just obliterated our way through way more things than I probably should have been able to beat. Unlocking parts is one of the roguelike elements of this game. There is progression by unlocking parts for future runs. And you'll do that here, unlocked parts. So you can see, you get these like key things as you beat fights, basically. It's essentially like, almost like experience points or something. You can kind of think of it that way. So they accumulate over time, and then when I got to 100, it unlocked this. So here's a sniper, does 5 to 10 damage at range 3, which is, sounds silly, but range 3 is really long in this game. Most things are 1 or 2. So when I got to 100, this will now show up in future runs offered to me. And so as I go, I can unlock more and more cool stuff. There's all sorts of bodies, and here's like a spider thing. I don't know what these are, but they look really fun, and I can't wait to unlock all of these things. Look at that, 1900. That's going to take me a while to get there. Improvements are one of the other roguelike elements. The improvements is a place where you can upgrade all sorts of different facets about your run. When you're playing the game on missions, you will find these meta energy things on the ground in the mission on the little maps, and you have to collect them by running a mech over them. If you don't collect them by the time the mission's over, they're lost. And if the enemies touch them, they're also lost. So you kind of have to, sometimes you have to kind of have a sacrifice mech that's either fast or you don't mind them dying, and they go out and collect this stuff while your main forces are doing your fighting. And then you use this stuff in between runs to make all sorts of upgrades. Now, I've never spent any of this, but essentially you have a lot of different capacities. So let me go through these really quickly. Energy storage is the maximum amount of energy you can have at a time. That means that if you want to spawn in a bunch of stuff at once on a turn or at beginning of a battle, and you need more than 15 while you're out of luck, you can only use that much. Similarly, if you have mechs that are very expensive, you will never be able to spawn them in if your capacity isn't high enough. So this is something I was running into big problems with on my couple runs I did already. My energy storage needs to go up quickly because this is not enough to get really cool big mechs yet. Generator gives you energy at the end of a battle. You can also collect it during the battle on certain spots. The credit machine gives you these little chips at the end of a battle. You get some of those every time you complete a battle, and those are used for upgrades during a run to individual parts or to get new parts. Multi-core sets the maximum number of mechs you can control. So right now I can only have 5 total, but you can increase this. Didn't typically need more than 5, but I can see needing 6 or 7 could be useful. Glitch is in engineering. Try again and pick a new part one time. When you go to engineering and you pay for new parts to be added to your collection for that run, this will let you get additional choices. Options is after a boss battle, you actually get these, they're called expansions. They're kind of like really powerful abilities that affect your entire run rather than individual things, like all of your mechs have +1 armor, or all of your mechs cost 1 less to summon in, or something like that. This will give you more options. Instead of having 2, you could have 3. Garbage collection, recover up to 2 energy when scrapping. You can destroy mechs that you have to get the space back, get the parts back, and you only get 1 energy. It's not very good, but you can get 2 instead. If you start upgrading this, you can get more and more energy. Transformer is allowing you to buy energy for your chips. Reverse transformer allows you to buy chips with energy. Starting credits increases the amount of these chips you have when you start off. That's very important. I guess they're called credits. They look like chips to me, but we'll call them credits. And these are used for your upgrades. And starting energy is, of course, how much energy you start a run with. So all of these are very important. I would say I'll probably grab energy storage and then have an unfortunate not enough to get a 10 cost thing, but that's okay. Let me go ahead and grab that. That's really important. Actually, you know what? I might grab this again. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Set maximum energy to 17 now instead of 15. That'll be really helpful. So that's how the improvements work. Next up is the Swarm. This is essentially a bestiary of monsters. So you'll start off the game fighting really easy things. Here's a troll. It has 4 health. It moves 1. It does 4 damage right next to it. It's pretty small and cheap and easy to kill. You don't have to worry too much about these guys. The monsters tend to hit pretty hard, though. Note that a lot of my mechs had my basic mechs had 7 or 8 health. They can't take 2 hits from these, the easiest enemies in the game. 2 hits will kill your mech. So the game is very much about avoiding taking damage and planning out how you can go in and kill the enemies before they get a chance to do anything. You don't want to be reacting to their attacks. You won't survive doing that. And just as an example, here's some other kinds of enemies. This one has 6 health, can move a little bit faster, does a little more damage. Here's a flying enemy. There are ones that have cleave attacks. I don't remember where, but some of these do have different effects, like knockback, charge in a straight line, knockback. This one does a lot of damage. Can't be pushed or pulled, resists debuff. So the monsters can do all sorts of different things, just like your mechs can. And finally, you have stats. Don't pay too much attention to my pretty poor stats at this point, but this just keeps track of all the numbers of all the stuff you've done so far, like beating missions, killing monsters, collecting different resources, and things like that. It's just kind of cool to take a look at. So when you're ready to start a new run, you're going to click the New Run button down here. It'll take you in here to this cool little laboratory. This is where I think that scientist from the story basically developed his tech that lets you spawn in these remote-controlled machines through this replication tech. In here, there is a tutorial. You can start the tutorial if you've somehow skipped it or you didn't do it the first time. There are challenge options. Now, I'm not going to be doing these because the game is hard enough as it is, especially in the new parts where I don't have a lot of stuff unlocked. I don't have a lot of upgrades, but you can do all sorts of stuff. So Swarm comes in higher numbers, so you'll fight more enemies per battle. Some Swarm monsters are tougher. Some Swarm monsters hit harder. Collect less energy after a battle, and you can go up and up and up, and it gets some Swarm monsters hit even harder, collect even less energy after a battle, so you can make the game really hard if you want. I don't know if you get extra resources or anything from this. I haven't tried that out yet, but I will at some point. And in the upper left, this is important. These will be your stats that you will keep track of throughout the run. This is your meta energy. This is not useful in any way during a run. It's only used for upgrades after a run, but that is important. This is your credits. This is your upgrade system during a run to upgrade mechs and collect parts. Here's your current energy and your maximum energy. Now, that's not correct. I can have 17, but it probably hasn't updated because I haven't started a new run with the new stuff. And I start with 1 mech out of 5, and it should be this one. All right, so with that information out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. So we'll start off with a battle. So there's a few things going on here that you need to pay attention to when you're in a game. You can move around with WASD, or I think middle mouse. Yeah, I tend to just use the middle mouse button. So in a battle, these are kind of procedurally generated maps, and there's a few things you need to pay attention to. The first thing you need to pay attention to is your starting mechs. Mechs carry over from battle to battle. So if this mech takes damage during this fight, it will not heal up before the next fight. It will actually come in at lower health. So this would be a good time to scrap this mech. If it had low health, I could scrap it now and I would get a little bit of energy and I would free up one of my slots. Let's say I'm at 5 and I need to get a better one in here that's not wounded. The other reason you might scrap a mech is because, remember when I was showing you the mech design screen? If parts are in use, it costs more to pull in those parts again. So this costs more because the parts are already here. So we could scrap it and then it would be cheaper to pull in a different design using these same parts. So for now, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and pull in one of these cheapos here. And so now we have these two. You can see the cost of the cheapo went up because the parts are in use, like I was just explaining. So now its action was being spawned, so I can't do anything with the cheapo this turn, but I can move this one. The other things you need to pay attention to are the sort of like landmarks in the map. This is an energy pod. If you end your turn here, it might actually be on turn begin, I'm not sure, but you get 3 energy. So you do get a little bit of energy at the end of each battle, but you really want to try to get some energy from these nodes in the center. They're typically in the center if you can during a run, because you won't make it very far just getting this 5 energy per battle. The other thing is this is meta energy. This is the improvement resource that we want to have after runs to upgrade all of our different capacities and stuff. So you want to be able to run somebody over this and grab it before the enemies do. They don't tend to go for it, but if it's somewhere here where they're going to run over it, you got to kind of think about if you want to grab that before they get a chance to. Enemies will always spawn over here. I've never seen them spawn anywhere else, so I don't think you have to worry about that. You can hover over them and see what they're going to do. You can also click on them and get a sense of their movement, which is this lighter colored area here, and then their damage zone, which is the red area. So this monster could move to here and then be able to attack things here or here, or it could move to here and attack, say, here or here. Monsters can attack things in the block tiles. If, say, there's a flying mech here, this troll could move to here and then attack that flying vehicle, so be careful of that. The game does give you hints about your mechs being in danger, and I will show you that as we go through the run. The last thing I want to point out is there's this energy wall back here. I don't remember if the story explained it, but there's essentially a timer on every battle, which is that there's a wall of energy that will instantly obliterate your mechs that progresses 1 tile every round. So every round of everybody going, it will get further and further along, and if it touches your mech, it just disappears instantly. So you do have to kind of, get a move on, or you could end up losing stuff. And I did that once. I had a battle where there was a choke point, and I was trying to be smart and use the choke point, but what happened was the wall started obliterating my backline, and I couldn't get through fast enough because all the enemies were piled up. So that is something you have to worry about. You can alleviate that a little bit with flying mechs that can fly over, say, the rubble, the block terrain, and get around to get resources or attack from behind. One other thing I want to point out is up here. This is your special powers. Always have your generator and your credit machine, but after every boss fight, you'll get another ability that they'll start adding up here. Like the last run I had +1 armor for all my mechs. That was very helpful. It just reduced the damage they took by 1 from every source. Very, very handy to have. So you may, over time, just double check what's going on up here. You can also always check out how much energy you're going to get at the end of the battle. So you might think, I'm really going to need a little bit more than that, so I got to make sure I grab some. And you can also click on your own mechs and take a look at what you have available here. So it'll show their scrap down here, shows their health, if they have any armor, their movement points. So 2, as you can see, you can't move diagonally. This is not 1 movement, this is 2. He has to go here and then here. And then he has 2 movement points total, and he has move after action. So that's an ability. So if you use this action to shoot something, then you could move afterwards. You can hover over your actions. You can see this mech has the double cannon equipped that does the 2 to 5 damage twice at a range 2. So you can click on it and take a look at the range. This red box here, the dark red, is showing what you can currently shoot. This lighter red here or more transparent red, I should say, is showing your capacity to hit something if you moved as well. So if I moved to here, I could hit here. Very cool that the game shows that to you, so you can always kind of plan out your turns. The enemies have a big advantage in that they always come in at fresh with full health. They don't have to worry about resources, and they have a lot of powerful monsters and high damaging attacks. So you have the advantage of information, and they have the advantage in almost everything else. So that's something you do have to do. You have to pay attention to what's going on and kind of plan out your turns. It does play a little bit like a puzzle game, but I gotta say that the true fun of the game is building your mechs as you get more parts. If you have any other actions, they'll all be down here along this bar here. It's possible that a mech will have 2 to 3 different weapons and items. You can use all of them unless something weird says you can't. So I had a big mech that had a shield and a missile launcher and a machine gun, and I can use all 3 of those if I want to or if I'm in range. All right, everybody, that's going to be our episode 0 for Mech Armada. Come on back to episode 1, which will be out in a little bit here, and we will get to do some gameplay, and I'll show you what it's like to progress as you get your resources, unlock new parts, get more mechs out on the field, design bigger, cooler mechs and stuff like that. So really appreciate everybody watching. Again, congratulations on Lion Code Studios for your first game that you've put out. Very, very cool, and keep at it. And again, this game is in early access, and they're making improvements. They just had a patch the other day that fixed some bugs and some other sort of quality of life stuff. Really, really appreciate it. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in episode 1.